Welcome friends to another Dune video. Today we look at the ceremony of the seed, i.e. the water of life, and the genetic memory it unlocks. Broad spoilers for the Dune universe throughout, let's get straight into it. It is a rite of passage for Fremen Sayadina to become Reverend Mothers by hopefully surviving the water of life. To do this, you have to ingest large doses of melange. Should you succeed, you can gain access to the knowledge of previous Reverend Mothers. The Bene Gesserit were among the first groups to deploy it, and because of the Missionara Protectiva, I'll explain that in a moment, the Bene Gesserit, when arriving at Arrakis, recognised the ceremony and how it matched their own attempts at making Reverend Mothers. The Fremen, for their part, with increasing sophistication, have been using the ceremony since they had arrived in Arrakis as Zensunni Wanderers. The Missionara Protectiva is of course responsible for sowing the seeds of superstition in primitive cultures so that should they ever find themselves there, the sisterhood can take advantage of these seeded legends. The ceremony gifts the Fremen with their own Reverend Mothers, and aided with that ancestral leadership, they are able to survive even the harsh world of Arrakis under the Harkonnens. When Paul and Jessica came to the ceremony, it was ready for mythic exploitation by Paul. The water given in this ceremony was taken by drowning a stunted sandworm, the poison being produced with its last dying breath. And now a short aside. One thing I've been thinking about is why it is called the water of life. It is produced from the bile of a dying sandworm and brings back the memories and personalities of those who have passed. But where it makes sense to me is bringing in those memories back to life within the form of the new Reverend Mother, the combined memories of those before given new life, rebirth if you will, under the command of her. They never really die. It gives life back to them. The Reverend Mother would then be tested by her having to change the poison using her abilities into an awareness-expansing aphrodisiac by changing its molecular structure. To aid with the water, each siege would keep a number of makers trapped to restrict their growth to 9 meters. Under Muad'Dib, his Fedaykin would have the water of life presented at military triumphs, and the Sieges were hard-pressed to meet the numbers of little makers required during that time. In Dune, it is the prior Reverend Mother that brought Jessica into the fold, as we just went over. Jessica bent over the spout and smelled the cinnamon. An acolyte Chani, a Sayadina, would serve and recite a litany, another link to the Bene Gesserit influence on Arrakis perhaps. Dune tells us it goes like this. Here is the water of life, the water that is greater than water, Can, the water that frees the soul. If you be a Reverend Mother, it opens the universe to you. Let Shai-Hulud judge now. As numerous documents show, Lady Jessica did emerge from the ritual as a Reverend Mother. So you can see the Bene Gesserit's influence where there is a litany of fear used by them in certain situations. Here there is another litany that the Fremen use in the ceremony. Frank Herbert tells the moment of Jessica's memories awakening like this. And the memory mind encapsulated within her opened to Jessica, permitting a view down a wide corridor to other Reverend Mothers, until there seemed no end to them. Jessica recoiled, fearing she would become lost in an ocean of oneness. Still, the corridor remained. But for Jessica, there was a consequence. At least some others must have suffered similarly for people to be wary of Jessica's choice. This was Jessica's unborn child, because it also made the child a full Reverend Mother when Jessica herself took the water of life. All those memories from previous ones were also born into her daughter. She would later be called an Abomination. She would of course be called Alia. The term is recognised by the Bene Gesserit sisterhood, and it is told to us like this in the Dune Encyclopedia. It involves the possession of the host's psyche of a preborn by the overwhelming personality of a genetic, ancestral pseudo-life. The term preborn is defined in the Bene Gesserit Azar book as that soul resting quietly within its womb bed, whose entire life is destroyed by a pre-birth knowledge of its ancestors' persona. The danger is in the child attempting active communication by calling individuals from their memory, perhaps not recognizing the dangers as a young child. The more frequent a child calls a persona, the stronger the persona becomes, eventually being able to intrude upon the host consciousness at will. It can then go either way, with that personality becoming dominant over the host body, but some have protection, as with Paul's children, later the second and Ganima, who, like Alia, had those memories at a young age. The conversation goes like this: "I know the history of it," Ganima said. "But if that's true, why don't we suffer from this inner assault?" Later replies, "Perhaps our parents stand guard within us." When the Bene Gesserit encounter this sort of situation, they have commandments to avert an occurrence of it in the future. In the Book of Azar it tells us, "No woman who has become one with the water of life may thereafter bear a child." So that's the first commandment. Then, no woman may ever feel safe from the threat of possession, so they are always on watch, on guard. Then, no woman with child can participate in any form of the water of life ceremony upon pain of death. No child born under these accursed conditions shall be suffered to live, and no adult found to be possessed, even if born outside of the condition of abomination, shall be suffered to live. So they're very clear on how they feel about this. Paul later went along his mother's path. He saw he needed to take the water and had one drop. It put him into a coma for 3 days. Then he was revived by Charney, and after this he could see what the Bene Gesserit could not, and could access the male and female halves of his ancestors' memories. So I think the difference here between what Paul has access to and what the Reverend Mothers have access to, the Reverend Mothers have the access to the memories of the previous Reverend Mothers, whereas Paul here has access to the memories of all his male and female ancestors, an incredible length of knowledge going back such a long time. Imagine what you could learn from that. Do I think it's more explained when Leto does something similar with his memories, that he takes them on board and listens to them? I'm also aware that there's some debate in the Dune fandom that what Paul actually gains from taking the water of life is the male and female halves of his ancestors' memories. Paul speaks about being a fulcrum point between the male and female halves. Now, I've gone back and forth on this, but I think that is what Frank Herbert was reaching for, though he doesn't explain it very clearly, and I think the idea is evolved and shown to us when Leto has those same memories. Now, friends, I turn this over to you. Did you enjoy the many topics and information that was put together here? Do you have any questions about the memory or possession that I might be able to answer? Have you taken the water of life and hear voices? Comment down below.